This is Techstrong TV.
I'm Bonnie Schneider for Techstrong TV. EcoVadis is committed to creating a more environmentally responsible global economy. Joining me now is Madhur Aggarwal, Chief Product Officer of EcoVadis, to discuss sourcing and procurement practices for his company, and of course the partnership with Microsoft to drive their sustainability efforts. Madhur, thanks so much for joining us. Can you share a little bit about your background and how you got started with this company?
Yeah, Bonnie, first of all, thanks for having me. It is super privileged to be with you and your audience at Tech TV. But in terms of getting started, the EcoVadis, which is a French company, was started by two people, Pierre-Francois and Frederic Trinel, in 2007, right? Hard to imagine that in 2007, actually, there were a set of people who are passionate about sustainability overall. But the way it got started was Pierre-Francois was at Ariba, which is a well-known procurement software provider, which eventually got bought by SAP. And he received a 125 questions questionnaire from one of the providers, Nokia, actually, at that point of time. And when they followed with Nokia, they said they've sent it to 500 suppliers. And he thought, there must be a better way to do this. And a few weeks later, he read an article where French Railways actually signed up for ethical uniforms for 100,000 of their company employees. And they saw the uptick was more than normal. And actually, Pierre-Francois, being in procurement, knew that this was the actual golden moment when actually sustainable procurement and supply chain was going to actually lead to better outcomes. So it's an interesting story when you think about it. In 2007, many of us probably were like, did not know how to spell sustainability, but they saw these nuggets overall, and little came this idea, which 15 years later is a movement at this space at this time.
It's interesting. They really sound like they were ahead of the curve back then. Can you share with us what inspired EcoVadis to launch the sustainability ratings and supplier engagement platform?
Yeah, so what inspired us is the simple belief system that actually, one is data, but the other is the belief system and the conviction. So the data actually shows that between 50 and 90% of your scope 3 or carbon footprint and your sustainability footprint actually comes from your supply base overall. But it also actually is launched from the fact that a lot of the risk, your business risk, actually sits in your supply chain, right? Like take industries where their direct and core material is driven by the supply base. We've seen that in the last, few years with COVID and all of the things with supply chain. So how do you actually de-risk that supply chain? And that is where the whole genesis is. And then the ability to combine that with doing good in the world is where the genesis of the idea is. And today, lo and behold, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. But more importantly, it's an industry where people are saying, hey, we can actually do better in the world.
That's great. So that is a positive message, and I can see where that would be an inspirational endeavor to get involved in. Let's take a deeper dive into the technical aspect. So how does EcoVadis help organizations assess, monitor, and engage with their suppliers on sustainability performance?
Yeah, so it's fairly simple. We actually do that in two ways. We actually take our first party and third party data and actually using our proprietary methodology help assess 100,000 companies in our network. First party data means data that is actually being supplied directly by your supply chain partners, who actually are going to be sharing their data in the form of a questionnaire that we actually share with them, and they're going to be sharing documents, etc. And the third party data is where we actually use our proprietary in-house AI technology to actually scout the web to understand what is being reported actually about the company, how that factors in, whether that is positive, negative, how recent that information is. And we actually plug all of that into our methodology, which is then through a combination of technology and human verified, and then a store is actually assessed and shared with the network and the participants in there.
That's really fascinating, because I would imagine as time goes on, more data is available in those recent reports. Has that allowed you to kind of, you're constantly scaling because there's just so much more being reported in this area?
Yeah, no, that is a great observation. And what we do find is absolutely, first, the companies themselves, the companies that are rated, have become smarter, have become more focused on this. So they themselves have more reports and more data to actually report on, share with us. And they're more willing to do that because they actually see a business benefit to it. And the second thing is, in public domain, there is more and more information available. But what we also do find is there's almost a divide. Some companies actually have an overload of information reported about them, and some companies actually, some of the smaller suppliers in actually some of the remote countries, don't have enough information reported about them. And that makes our combination of first party and third party pretty powerful, that we are not reliant on just one source. We are able to bring all of those things together.
Can you tell us about EcoVadis's partnership with Microsoft? How does that start, and where is it going right now?
Yeah, so Microsoft's a great partner. In fact, Pierre-Francois was meeting them earlier in the week here. So we actually love our partnership with Microsoft and their Cloud for Sustainability product. We are also actually a big partner of theirs on the Azure side. A lot of our data centers use their Azure technology. So I think that is great from that perspective. And just on that, it's not just Microsoft. We actually do believe that we have an opportunity to partner with many providers in the tech ecosystem, including SAP, including Microsoft, and others, to actually make sustainability pervasive and into the workflow of our customers.
And we mentioned some of the data sources that you use, but how are you managing it in terms of ensuring the accuracy, integrity, and privacy, of course, of the data that's collected by this platform?
Yeah. So, in today's day and age, you cannot talk about data without actually talking about integrity, accuracy, privacy, all of those. So those are principles that are native to us. Part of it is our French DNA, correct? We've always actually thought about those things by design. But there are 2 or 3 specific things that we actually do. So you talked about accuracy. I talked about, hey, how we take first-party data and third-party data. But then we actually have large operations and our team of analysts that actually verify that data. Just because you actually happen to share a piece of information does not mean it may be accurate. So we actually have a number of people who are going into the details, verifying for their accuracy. The second is actually, from an integrity perspective, it is built in by design. Not built in by design just from a technology perspective, not just from, hey, ensuring that our data centers are secure and all of those data governance elements are in there, but also from a product design perspective. So as a simple example, in our network by definition has 2 sides, a requesting company and a rated company. Actually, no participant in the network actually has access to each other's information without the participant explicitly giving permission. So if I'm a rated company, I'm a supplier, let's say, I have to say this particular enterprise company is able to see my rating, or they are able to see this specific element of my rating or my data. So we've actually built that into product design for us, and that is a core element for us.
A lot of our audience that are watching on Techstrong TV are in the DevOps field. So I wanted to ask you about what challenges EcoVadis faced during the development phase for its platform, and also integrating it with Microsoft's suite of products.
Yeah. So on the DevOps side of things, or on the Microsoft, so obviously we've gone through evolution, given that we started in 2007 when DevOps wasn't a term, as your participants would actually know. People were still thinking of their own data centers, as did EcoVadis at that point of time. But over time, we've actually moved to the hyperscalers overall, and actually moved more big part of our workload to the hyperscalers. Now, in terms of the challenges that we run into the same challenges that everyone else in the DevOps field runs into. Is, hey, how do you actually move more and more of the workload to the cloud? How do you actually get resiliency? How do you ensure correct, you have fail safe and all of those things? How do you ensure privacy? How do you ensure data residency requirements are met, in Europe versus in China versus in the US, as an example? So all of those are things that we deal with as well. But I don't know if we deal with that in any more or less fashion than any of your viewers actually deal with. In fact, I would be curious to hear, some of the learnings from them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, for the people that are using this platform, your clients, your customers, how can they access and analyze the data in real time? What mechanism do you have for that?
Yeah. So again, you talk about the platform, and again, I take this opportunity to say our platform is a network, right? At the end of the day, there is an enterprise company. Think of a Forbes 2000 company that is actually using to rate a large number of their supply base, and then on the other side is 100,000 plus. What we refer to as rated companies, or these are the suppliers. Suppliers is the wrong word, because sometimes these companies are pretty big companies in their own right overall, sort of thing. So what we actually do allow is, on our network, we allow people to access our data through API. So obviously we will actually give you data access through API. We'll build in reports to give you insights from there, but then also be able to download some of this data that we believe that you should have access to, while ensuring data privacy, as we talked about earlier in there. So all of those elements are available. Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about automation, and I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that in terms of how you're using automation to streamline your processes.
Yeah. So streamlining processes happens for us at multiple levels. The first level for us is when we have a company of our size, how are we using automation to actually for our own internal purposes? So we use actually a number of capabilities, including Celonis, that some of your customers may be actually aware of, to use our own data mining and to better understand our own internal efficiency in there. The second thing is automation in terms of, as I talked about, the use of hyperscalers, and then that allows us to actually start automating some of the core engineering tasks that we don't have to spend time on. And then finally, from a product perspective, we actually use AI, ML capabilities to automate some of these tasks, to get additional data sources, partnering with some data providers externally to get more and more of this information, so that we can reduce the burden of reporting on our partners in the network.
Well, for our final question, we started with the origin of the company. I'd like to talk about the future. So what is the vision that you have for the future of EcoVadis, and how do you see the company evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so our vision is very simple. Our guiding principle is guide all companies towards a sustainable world, correct? And we use the word thoughtfully, guide all companies, correct? It is not like, small or large or mid companies towards a sustainable world. We recognize that these companies are the main actors in there. Our vision for the future is that we play a small role in actually helping get to, the 2050 Paris Accord and climate agreement, where we only actually raise the temperature by 1.5 degrees by 2050. And we are a small player in that. That is our end goal. That is the vision we are here for. Obviously, sustainability software is the way we do it, but that is the aspiration we're going after.
Thank you so much, Madhur. That was a fascinating insight into the sustainability and all the advancements that EcoVadis has made, and we look forward to seeing more of that in the future. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was Madhur Aggarwal, Chief Product Officer at EcoVadis. Well, stay with us on Techstrong TV. We're going to have a lot more news coming up.